So welcome back to the workshop then, and to part 3 of my new model mandolin build series. So what have we got for you in this episode? Well, I look at the rosette, making the rosette and fitting that, a bit more on the neck, and also some more on the back. There was quite a bit of interest in my use of the radius dish, so that kind of continues with the fitting of the back. So yeah, let's get cracking, shall we? Right, so this lovely red spruce Adirondack soundboard. So I need to obviously do the centre join now. Oh, let's get it right. That's it. I don't know if you can hear that ring. But you get a wonderful bell-like sound with the Adirondack. Anyway, let's get that planing. It's no secret to say that your plane needs to be as sharp as you can possibly get it. The way I like to test this is just have it flat on the shooting board like that. I apply a bit of pressure in the middle there. I can see that it's a decent joint, and then I just try it to either end, and that's really stiff there. That's binding there, and the same the other end. So so with very little pressure in the middle. So I know that that joint is sound all the way along there. I'll flip it over and check the other side, make sure that there's no gaps on the other side, and that this side is as good, and it is. So that's now ready to glue. So obviously the soundboard has been glued together. It's been taken down to just over 3mm in thickness, and I'm about to start work on the rosette. The area where the rosette is going to go has had a couple of coats of sanding sealer. That protects the wood from the glue, and also it seems to help the router bit cut cleaner. I need also to fix my jig to this, the jig which allows me to cut the overall sound hole, and I fix it with a screw going through this point here. Now it's incredibly difficult to drill a hole accurately in a piece of spruce because you've got a really marked contrast between the soft grain of the summer growth compared to the hard grain of the winter growth. The drill tends to wander off. It wants to move towards the soft grain. So I always put this piece of veneer on, which allows me to centre punch it really accurately and get that drill off to an accurate start. Right, excellent, pleased with that. That looks incredibly clean. Right, next step coming up. So with the channel routed, I'm just having a dry run to make sure that the rosette will fit. Now it's going to be a very simple design. That's just my current sense of aesthetics, if you like. So it's black, white, black, purfling either side of a red veneer. And again, it's that red theme that's going right the way through it. So I'm happy that that fits. I'm going to glue it in with epoxy resin. The reason being is that this is a tight fit. If I use tight bond, I introduce moisture. You introduce moisture to wood, things start to swell up, and that will lock up, and I won't be able to get that rosette in without, without a lot of force, if indeed at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it in with epoxy, and epoxy tends to be very slippery when it's wet, and it acts more like a lubricant, so that should go in easier. At the end here, I'm not going to try to bring them round to make a perfect join. I want somewhere for the excess epoxy to actually escape from, and that part will be underneath the fretboard support, so you know there's no need to worry about it being seen. So yeah, I'm going to take that out now, mix the epoxy up and see how we go. Okay, so a little while later, that epoxy is dry. It's looking very promising, so time to clean it up. Right, so there we have it. One hole. and there's the other part of the hole. So that's as far as I'm going to go with the neck at this particular stage of the build. So you can see we've got the tuner holes drilled there. The volute I've started to carve, and I've got this lovely burr walnut head overlay and my famous red stripe running around the edge there. A few people have noticed that on my more recent instruments I haven't been using my N logo inlay in the top there. I guess I'm just preferring these days a more kind of minimalist approach to any ornamentation. You know, and when I look at that head, to me it's a perfect blend of form and function. You've got that beautiful burr walnut. Why would I need to put anything else on there? That kind of speaks for itself to my mind. Anyway, enough of that. On to the next stage, which is the back. So I'm just about to glue on this reinforcing strip down the centre of the inside of the back, and to glue it up I use this simple jig of mine. I don't know if you can see that, but the radius of this is exactly the same as the radius of the sanding dish I would have shown you in a previous video. So the idea is that goes on there. We apply pressure and force that down, and when the glue sets, this will be set in the same curve as the radius dish. So here we have the two spruce braces that make up the X bracing for the back of the mandolin, and one edge of each has been planed to the same radius as that radius stitch I showed you earlier. I've cut the join in there and they go together like so. So I can glue that X together, and then tomorrow when that's dried I'll fit that to the back itself. So using that radius stitch on the braces, once that X has been glued together, ensures that the braces will match the curve that I want exactly. So I'm not sure if it's clear to see, but that back has already got quite a nice arch on it, just due to gluing this reinforcing strip up in that little curved jig. So the next step now is for me to fit the X brace onto the back, and when I say fit, it's really cutting a very accurate notch in this area so that that slots in exactly. Right, so there you have it, all the back bracing nicely cleaned up, and that's ready now for me to fit to the back. And again, I'm not quite sure if you can see it, but it has got this lovely kind of dome to it, with this area being the kind of the high point. So from here, if you like, everything slopes away at a radius. And in answer to someone's question, 15 feet, 15 foot radius, 4,000 something or other millimeters. So I'm just test fitting now the back. I've cut the housing joints for the ends of the X braces, and I just want to make sure everything fits snugly. So if I use a feeler gauge, that goes obviously in a gap between the back and the linings, also on that side. But if I do it here, it won't go in, there's no gap between the top of the brace and the bottom of that housing joint. So clearly I've got to make that housing joint deeper, although for this final adjustment it's easier and I think more accurate just to shave a little bit off of that brace, and then once I've shaved a bit off that brace, everything should fit really snugly there. So with a bit of adjustment on that brace, you can see that the feeler gauge is much tighter here and here now and here, so I should have a perfect join all the way around there. So now I'll just go and check all of the other ones. So I'm just doing a test fit here, and I can see that I've got the kind of arch on the back there that I desire, so I'm pleased with that. It's not going to be glued on yet because obviously I've got to brace the front and also fit the front, do those similar sort of housing joints. But yeah, pleased with that. So crack on with the next step. So before I go on to that next step, that's what the inside looks like. And yeah, really that curve, that arch to the back, as I say, the secret is using one of those radius dishes as far as I'm concerned, and that radius is consistent on the braces, the centre strip and sanding the edge of the rim, so it all comes together really nicely. In fact, look, you can see it spinning there on the centre point of the arch. How cool is that? Well, I do hope that you enjoyed part 3 there. As always, many thanks for taking the time to watch the video, and also thank you for all of your comments and support. It really is greatly appreciated. So until the next time, you take care and hopefully we'll see you soon. Okay, cheers then.